Washington, this is VOA News. I'm Steve Norman reporting. President Trump is replacing his National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, with John Bolton. It is the latest in a number of recent high-level staff changes. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was fired last week. Bolton, who also was Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security from 2001 to 2005, is regarded as a hardliner and interventionist on matters of foreign policy and defense. He has recently advocated for pulling out of the nuclear deal with Iran and for a first strike on North Korea. President Trump has initiated actions to consider imposing tariffs on a list of 1,300 Chinese imported products worth about $60 billion. China's Commerce Ministry today proposed a list of U.S. products as a potential retaliation target. President Trump often uses automobile trade between China and the U.S. as a reason for increasing tariffs on Beijing.
The word that I want to use is reciprocal. When they charge 25% for a car to go in, and we charge 2% for their car to come into the United States, that's not good.
Mr. Trump campaigned on promises to bring down a massive trade deficit and crack down on abusive commercial practices by U.S. trading partners. More than 1,500 Syrian rebel fighters, their families evacuating a town, a besieged Damascus suburb of eastern Ghouta, army moving closer to recapturing the entire capital. Rebel officials said they expect the evacuation to last several days. Evacuation deal brokered by Russia and worked out between Syrian rebels and the government. This is VOA News. United Nations is saying that Saudi Arabian airstrikes are to blame for most civilian deaths and injuries in Yemen. Lisa Schlein reporting now from Geneva, where a report by the UN Secretary General and High Commissioner of Human Rights on the critical situation in Yemen has been issued.
In late March 2015, Saudi Arabia began bombing Houthi rebels in support of the government. Since then, the UN Human Rights Office has verified 6,100 civilian deaths, more than one quarter of them children. UN Deputy High Commissioner Kate Gilmore, who presented the report to the Council, says the actual number of casualties is likely to be far higher. The United Nations condemns the Saudi coalition's blockade of Yemen's sea and airports. It says the restrictions on imports and humanitarian assistance are compounding the already unbearable suffering of millions of people. The United Nations says 22 million Yemenis are in need of humanitarian aid and 8 million are at risk of famine. Lisa Schlein for VOA News, Geneva.
President Trump is saying he would like to testify before the special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. Mr. Trump's comments came shortly after John Dowd, his lead lawyer in the Russia investigation, resigned amid a shakeup of the president's legal team. On social media this week, President Trump has assailed the special counsel, which also is seeking to undermine or to determine, that is, the extent of the contact between Russians and the Trump associates during the 2016 U.S. presidential election, as well as whether Mr. Trump tried to obstruct justice in involving to end the criminal investigation. The president contends the team conducting the inquiry, which is what he calls a witch hunt, is stacked with opposition Democrats. In farewell remarks to State Department staff, outgoing U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson asked American diplomats and civil servants to be respectful to each other and to carry on the priorities of U.S. national security.
Never lose sight of your most valuable asset, the most valuable asset you possess, your personal integrity.
Tillerson did not mention President Trump, who fired him last week just hours after the top diplomat returned to Washington from a five-nation tour of Africa. He will be replaced by CIA Director Mike Pompeo. World's largest collection of ocean garbage floating in the Pacific halfway between Hawaii and California, now bigger than ever, bigger than France, Germany, and Spain combined. Get more on that story and all the news at our website, voanews.com. I'm Steve Norman in Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.